What happens if Alex Karaban decides to go pro? Welcome into the Hoops Cap Pod, powered by Big East Energy. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto of the Hoops Cap. Here talking about what ifs in this transfer portal game that everyone's been playing. What if UConn's arguably most decorated player in the men's history, or one of at least, decides to chase his NBA dream and go pro? What will the staff do then? I know they're diligently having conversations with him. I know that he's kept a very tight lip around any and all people that know him. But I first want to just mention, I really appreciate everyone that's been listening to the podcast, listening to everything that we got going on at Big East Energy Network. The Hoops Cap's not all we do, but I know that's what you're interested in. So just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's really kind of come over from where I was at over at the other podcast network, who shall remain nameless, and really super excited about moving forward, Husky Nation, with this show and others coming down the pike. But so let's break this down. If you haven't already liked or subscribed, definitely do so. It gives us a huge boost in our ratings, our ability to pay people on our staff, everything that goes with it. So Alex Karaban, one of the most decorated players in UConn history, two-time national champion, a guy who's got the respect of everyone who knows hoops. What's his decision? What if Alex decides it's time to chase that NBA dream? How does UConn replace him? With all the crazy talent that's in this year's transfer portal and some names that just dropped literally yesterday evening, it could be something that the staff is 100% contemplating, and most assuredly they are. What if they land a player who doesn't just fill his shoes, but pushes UConn towards a third title in 4 years? Someone that maybe doesn't fill his shoes from a mentality standpoint or a leadership standpoint, but eclipses him from a basketball talent, pure talent standpoint. These are the questions that we're going to try to answer on today's show. But before we do that, I want to talk about Alex Karaban and his legacy, because the dude is UConn royalty, and also he deserves it. I saw a great post from my guy Ryan Gresh talking about how if Alex Karaban waits until the last absolute last minute to decide what he wants to do, he has earned that right for his privacy, for everything that he's done for this UConn team. Even if he transfers and goes to St. John's, the worst place that Ryan could have chosen, and then turns around and says that he wants to come and have his number retired later on in life, we're cool with him. Alex owes all of us nothing. And he has been out there just working, a guy that coaches dream about, fans can really rally behind, because he's always been the every man player, right? He's not a diva. He's not, chasing TikTok highlights. He's substance over flash, clutch threes, smart cuts, locking down wings bigger than him, unselfish. Do you remember him playing the 5 against Zach Edey in the title game a couple years ago to keep Donovan out of major foul trouble? I do. If Dan Hurley calls him the heartbeat of the team and the brain center, what do other coaches call him? We saw Sean Miller go out of his way to essentially say he's one of the best winners in, college basketball history. Now, national champion coach Todd Golden talked about Alex Karaban in the press conference after they beat UConn in the second round. It was nothing but pure respect for opposing coaches and players for this UConn legend. He's been quoted as saying Hurley's competitive spirit has really pushed him to be great. And you can feel the love for UConn in how he plays. But here's the reality check. Alex has already graduated. He spent 4 years in Dan Hurley's system. Let's not kid ourselves. It's intense. It's rigorous. They've done E60s on it. They've done little behind-the-scenes vignettes about how insane Dan Hurley is and how locked in he is on his ability to coach this team with intensity. It's built for warriors. And Alex has thrived in it. He is a warrior. He's averaged around 13 points, 5 rebounds, shooting just under 40% from last season, from 3 last season. He's been projected to be a first-round pick in some NBA mock drafts, definitely a second rounder in everyone's estimation. Already tested the draft waters in 2024 before coming back. Now, with a degree in hand, what if he says, UConn's my home, but the NBA is calling? I wouldn't blame him. But that's a massive hole to fill from a leadership perspective, from all the little things that he does. And I wouldn't blame him if he also said, I'm not a guaranteed first rounder, so I'm staying back. So UConn's got some depth. They did some portal pickups. Silas DeMaurier Jr., ready to step in as that big point guard. Malachi Smith as a backup point guard as well, and also probably mixing in some, I don't know, maybe getting some minutes with a 3 or 4 guard lineup the way Dan likes to do it. The versatility of all these players is what makes Hurley's system go. Between horn sets, pick and rolls, DHOs, off-ball movement. So losing a guy like Alex, who kind of puts everyone in the right spot, hurts. But where it gets potentially juicy is the transfer portal is absolutely stacked this year in 2025. And Hurley's proven he can find gems. I've got 3 names who could step into Karaban's role. And there's a potential wild card 4th, a pipe dream player I'm saving for the end that could make you forget your worries and start dreaming about title number 7 and 19 overall for the men and the women together to hang and gamble. But before we get to those portal targets, let me ask you a quick question, Husky fans. Are you cool with Alex Karaban going pro? Drop some comments. Do you want him to go pro? Do you want him to come back to stay for one more run? Drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit us up on X, Instagram. Make sure you check out all of our content on the podcast between Hoopscap, Big East Energy Weekly. If you're a Creighton guy, go to see Roll Jays. They do amazing work there. Tons of access. Use the link tree for Big East Energy. You get a bunch of stuff there. We got good merch that we're putting out there. But let's keep it moving and talk about who is potentially going to replace a Husky legend. Welcome back to Big East Energy, the Hoopscat Pod, powered by Big East Energy Network. We're diving deep into the transfer portal to find out who could step into Alex Karaban's shoes if he decides to go to the NBA, what UConn's plan B would be. The portal's gone wild this year. Talent everywhere. Older talent, younger talent. Dan Hurley's got a knack for landing players who fit UConn's championship culture. He's done so in all of the years they've won a title. I've got 3 names on the table. The first is a familiar name, just dropped in the portal, Andrej Stojakovic. The son of an NBA legend, Peja Stojakovic, played with the Kings. That's more famous for the Kings. I don't remember if he played for other teams. I'm sure he has. Back in 2022, UConn offered him out of high school, seeing him as a highly skilled wing. He's 6'7" with good positional size, can score from everywhere, threes, pull-ups, mid-range game is tight, step backs, even initiate offense like a guard. He's got this semi-unconventional release, kind of like his dad, but it works. So fast forward to 2025. He's in the portal, averaging 18 points a game in the ACC. He was a second-team All-ACC player. He's got the kind of scoring punch that UConn could use. I didn't clip this, but if you stay with me here, go to the YouTube channel that they're showing Dan Hurley and Gino Auriemma talk about who they recruit and who do they go after. He's like, and Dan is quoted as saying, I am done going after defensive-minded players. He's like, you can't grab a defensive player and then teach him good offense. You grab an offensive player and then you hopefully get them to teach them good defensive principles. Paraphrasing, obviously. And Gino completely agrees. He's like, you get enough 1,000-point scorers on your roster and you're going to win a lot of games no matter how you're playing defense. They both laugh about it, but it's true. And I think that's a realization that Dan has come to. So when everyone freaks out about, well, we need a guy who can play defense. Yeah, you do, but you also need a guy who can put the ball in the hole. And that's something that UConn struggled with without the action, without manipulating the offense so that Solo gets wide open or a slip or just a post to Terrace. Like they have all these options now. What's wrong with adding another one? And that's where Peja Stojakovic comes into That's where Andrej Stojakovic comes into the mix. He's got this type of scoring punch. Hurley gets him in the weight room along with Jay Ross, and then Jay Stu coming back. He could be a two-way star. And let's talk about pedigree. Dan loves these high-character pedigree families, and there's no drama with a guy like Stojakovic. He would come in, and he would fit in almost instantaneously. This feels like a natural fit. His defensive growth is the question mark, but again, we've already talked about it. Dan and his staff will work on that. He's got size. So if we point to like someone like Aidan Mahaney who didn't work out last year and he's transferring to other places and wish him the best, but he didn't have the physical and positional size the way a Silas does or the way even Solo does, and you could see the difference at the end of the year with Solo playing better defense. I look at that Oklahoma game where he basically sealed the game on a block, against Fears. Towards the end of that game, I was sitting courtside. So this is the type of stuff that you have to just trust the Dan Hurley system on. Next guy, Grant Williams, not the Celtics guy, but the Texas Tech transfer. This dude's a 6'6" power forward, small forward-ish, thicker build, not the quickest, but strong, smart, super skilled. He's evolved from an undersized 4 in high school to a versatile mismatch hunter. Last season, he averaged 4 assists per game with a 23% assist rate. That's playmaking like that Karaban doesn't quite bring, but could potentially add to, because this kid is also similar to Alex, more of like a brain center, not the most athletic, but also can fit into a system like Dan Hurley's. He can post up, he can drive both ways, pick and pop, even run offense out of ball screens and dribble handoffs. He's a big initiator, which fits Hurley's system perfectly. The catch, his three-point shooting dipped to 34% last year, down from 46% as a sophomore. He's still a willing floor spacer, but his release is a bit unorthodox. Defensively, he's reliable on wings as long as he's got help in the gaps, and his rebounding is solid. Williams brings that high IQ team first vibe UConn loves, but he's not as explosive as a guy like Stojakovic or the next player I'm going to talk about, but still his versatility screams Hurley guy. And these aren't people who I'm saying they're going to get. These are reading the tea leaves and being like, okay, here's who's available. Here's who they've offered in a guy like Stojakovic. Here's who's available. Here's a guy that they clearly would love to have if it makes sense. And Grant Williams, to me, makes sense. Then we've got this one I've mentioned before. Tyler Betsey, a Connecticut kid. He's got UConn fans buzzing back in 2022. He was the Connecticut High School Player of the Year. Scouts raved about his 6'8" frame, fluid movement and shooting touch. He's got a soft, natural release and shows flashes of driving and playmaking transition. He's still developing consistency in the Wes Miller Cincinnati offense, which really was non-existent. He didn't do very much, but mostly because they rely on heavy guard play. So there's not a ton of action for their small forwards, for their wings, but defensively, he's got untapped potential. He slides his feet well. He needs to play with a little more urgency. Again, that's something that Dan Hurley can fire into him. Unlike Andrej Stojakovic and Williams, who are straight-up Karaban replacements, I actually think Betsey could come in even if Karaban stays. He's not repped by an agent. He's handling his own portal moves. So I could see him remaking his image under UConn's vets like Jay Stu, Jay Ross, Solo, learning the championship standard. His upside is huge at 6'8", great positional size, but he's probably a year away from any type of impact in terms of like Karaban, right? But these three, Stojakovic, Williams, Betsey, could keep UConn in the title hunt. I think UConn's in the title hunt regardless, but there's a fourth name and kind of a pipe dream guy I'm holding for the end here. We're going to get to that in a second, who could make this team an embarrassment of riches. So I am looking forward to that. It's not like I'm not going to talk to you guys about it. But before I do, remember, drop the comments in YouTube. Hit us on X. Don't forget to check out all of our breakdowns on our link tree at Big East Energy. Do the podcast, my show, Hoops Cap, Roll Jays, Big East Energy Weekly, and we're adding more shows as we get towards next season. Everything you need to stay locked on. Everything you need to stay dialed in. Let's wrap this up with a big question. Is Karaban really leaving, and who's the dream target? We're going to talk to you about that coming up after the break. All right, you're back on the Hoops Cat Pod, powered by Big East Energy. So is Alex Karaban really leaving? I don't know the answer to it, guys. Like, I would love to say yes or no. And I've been quoted as saying From what I've heard, it's like 60-40 he stays. But if that 40 starts to get to 50 and then they start having a conversation when the rubber meets the road and Alex goes, you know what? I've done everything I can do at UConn. I'm going to go. Then you start to look at the players that I just talked about. And there's another big target that I think could be an absolute game changer for UConn. Again, positional size. Remember the comments that I talked about Dan Hurley and how he doesn't really care about, all these. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've seen so many comments where it's like, we need a big bruising power forward. I love Coach Jim Calhoun. He is the most underrated coach probably in basketball history because of what he built and essentially the bones and the shell and the template of what this UConn program is. Dan Hurley is not Jim Calhoun. They have different mindsets about how to build a winner. If this was Jim Calhoun, you'd be right. He would absolutely go get a guy like a Jeff Adrian, get a guy like Terreno Walker, an absolute bruiser, to just, even a Hilton Armstrong, who turned into a first-round pick, but was not, when he first got on campus, you absolutely did not think that guy was going to be an NBA player. That being said, it's a different world, and Dan Hurley wants two-way players, meaning offense first, will teach them defense, and smart, the ability to play off script, but also be able to play in a system. And one player right now that I actually think is the best player left in the portal is Jamir Watkins. He is a 6'7" small forward / you can put him at the 4 wing out of Florida State. The dude is 6'10" wingspan, as every player from Florida State usually has. He's a freak athlete, highlight reel above the rim, second team all ACC guy, probably should have been first team. Averaged 18.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, almost 6 rebounds a game, and 1.2 steals last year. He is a good defender. He's got deep range on catch and shoot threes, almost 40% of those, 40% on threes, and draws fouls like crazy. Think PJ Haggerty, but at 6'7", and the ability to get to the rim, attack. He was top 12 in the country for fouls drawn per 40 minutes. Defensively, he can pick up full court and guard multiple spots, though he's not perfect in half-court rotations. The knock, efficiency. He shot 32% from 3 overall, had a negative assist-turnover ratio, partly because he had the ball so much. He wouldn't have the ball in his hands as much at UConn. That to me is the pitch. It's like, look, man, we know that you can handle the rock, and you're going to get situations where we need you to get a bucket, and that's fine. But in a Hurley system with defined roles, up-tempo play, he'd thrive. Even if they play this type of slow down, work the system game like they have the last few years, I don't think it's possible. Even if Alex Kierman was to stay, if you get a kid like Jamir Watkins, I think it's almost impossible for this UConn team to not run with Solo, with Silas, with Malachi, with Braylon, with Darius, with Eric, with Terrace. You have a bunch of thoroughbreds that are going to want to get out and run. Do they feel like they can probably slow it down when they need to and run offense? Absolutely. Is Watkins realistic? Probably not. He's a first-round talent himself. He's definitely in the portal. UConn's roster is already loaded, but if Hurley pulls off this move, if Karaban leaves, I think it absolutely makes them number 1 or number 2 in the country going into preseason. And if he was to grab a Stojakovic or a Williams for that immediate impact, I think they're right up there as well. I think they're a top 5 team already. When you start to look at who this team is and where they are from a perspective of who's on this roster and who's playing, I was looking at the grid, and you have Silas at the point guard. You have Solo as your shooting guard. I think Jalen Stewart starts at small forward, and Alex starts at power forward if he comes back with Terrace at center. Then you have Braylon being the first guy off the bench for any of the wings, Malachi Smith being the backup point guard, Darius Adams, Jacob Furphy, Eric Ryba in some way, shape, or form are getting run based off of foul trouble, how they play, everything that goes with it. I think everyone that says Braylon Mullins is going to start, I think that's definitely possible. But if you're bringing in a guy, if you're bringing in a big time player like a Stojakovic or a Williams to kind of add to this mix, if Alex was to leave, then maybe that doesn't happen. And here's the thing, it's okay. I think regardless, you have to look at it from this perspective. You come to UConn because you want to play for Dan Hurley and because you're going to make some money, but because you want to play under that tutelage and you're going to get better no matter what. Every player that left in the transfer portal, Ahmad Noel, Aidan Mahaney, Yusuf Singari, those guys are better. Rasul Diggins, Apostolos, all those guys are better for having played under Dan Hurley, even if they didn't get run. So I'm not as worried about you're going to push any guys out. You got to go get players that make sense, because you don't want to sit here and go, well, we got all these guys and we have all these developmental pieces as well. And Villanova, Xavier's being incredibly aggressive in the portal. Even Butler's got a bunch of guys coming in the portal. The only team that's really struggling right now are two teams, the Seton Hall and Providence. We'll see what happens with that. Probably DePaul. I haven't looked at DePaul as much, but we're going to get into that another time. Listen, I appreciate everyone that's listening to the pod. That's a wrap. Hopefully you guys let us know what you think. Does Karaban stay or go? What's your dream portal target? If I didn't mention it, drop your takes in the YouTube comments. Hit us up on X. Check out our content, our podcasts, everything on our Linktree/Big East Energy. Subscribe. Hit that bell. That way, when you share this with every UConn fan you know, let's keep this Big East Energy rolling. And until next time, stay dialed in and go Huskies.